Assalamu alaikum. My name is Shashil, and this is the video presentation for the topic physics of ventilators. So, ventilators are very useful, especially nowadays, because for the patients of COVID 19, these are very necessary. And we also know that there is a crisis of ventilators going on, so we really need to produce more and cheap ventilators because they are really, really expensive. So, in order to understand how ventilator works, we need to understand how a human breathing system works. So we inhale oxygen and we exhale carbon dioxide. So what, how this works? So whenever diaphragm contracts, the our lungs are, and our lungs expand and the air pressure inside decreases, and so the air is pushed inside our lungs, and then the our diaphragm relaxes and the lungs contract and internal pressure increases, so the air is pushed out. So there are some circumstances in which humans can't breathe normally, which means that the lungs cannot perform their function pretty well. For example, in case of COVID-19, the lungs are affected, so we cannot just a patient cannot breathe normally. In other cases, for example, if a person has asthma or has sleep apnea or pneumonia, etc., if he is unable to breathe or normally on his own, then we use artificial ways. So Andreas in 16th 17th century was the first 16th century was the first one who thought that an animal can be saved by inserting a lead pipe in his trachea. So later in the 16th century, 17th century, and 19th century, they thought that we can use it, and Anjis was the first one who laid the foundation for the ventilations. So in 20th century they used two type. In 1920s they used a negative pressure ventilators, which means that they used to put the patient in a chamber or in a closed room and then suck the pressure out of that room, which helped the lungs to expand easily, so a person can breathe normally. But there were certain limitations that in the when the due to negative pressure conditions, they were unable to examine the body of the patient. Then in 1960s, there came the positive pressure vacuums, in positive pressure ventilators. In these ventilators, they provide pressure from the outside, and which pressurize the air into the lungs. So what happens how when a ventilator works? So in case of ventilator, tube inserted inside our trachea, and air is pushed inside our lungs using that pipe tube. So okay, so later what happens is there is a monitor attached to that. We can just measure everything through there, that how much oxygen is required, and there is an embedded computer system in ventilators, which controls the amount of oxygen and the air in it. So we use ventilators in case of extreme emergencies. Normally a person, they are not recommended because of the sedations, as the pressure of air flux requires heavy sedations, so they can really infect our lungs. So that's why they are not really recommended, but are used as a last resort. So this is all from my side. Thank you.